Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nadia, and in this video, I'll show you how to crochet this very simple handmade item. It's a phone case. You know, it's trendy right now to have these phone socks. I'm not the one who released them. Apple did. So I thought, why not me? I'll make myself a sock too. Not an exact copy, of course, but my own handmade version using this incredibly elastic slip-stitch ribbing. It's perfect for this purpose. In this video, I'll also show you how to do Intarsia using this stitch. See, this version of the sock is made from two types of yarn, purple and multicolored, and this is where they join. I used this same technique in the socks that I crocheted using this method, meaning from scraps. People often ask me how I crocheted them. That's where I used this. There were more colors, not just two, but an incredible amount of these little leftover scraps. So catch this idea on how to use up your yarn scraps. If you have a lot of little leftover balls, you can use them for Intarsia. In this video, I'll show you the simplest way to change yarns and how to crochet the ribbing for your project in an alternative color. So give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's start crocheting. For this project, I'll be using a 4mm crochet hook. I'll also need a tapestry needle for sewing, a contrast yarn, and some yarn scraps. I'm using a cotton acrylic blend. This multicolored one is Yarn Art Jeans. And this one is Kartopu Amigurumi. They have roughly the same yardage and composition. This is a very simple project idea, but as always, it starts with a foundation chain using contrast yarn. I take the contrast yarn, my hook, and I chain 60. The stitches are cast on, and I'm moving on to my main colors. I'll start the piece with the multicolored yarn. This will be my closed edge, and over there, I'll make the open edge with this solid purple yarn. So I take the multicolored yarn and work as follows. Make a turning chain, then insert the hook into the back bump of the foundation chain. Like this. Yarn over and pull through. That's one. Into the next bump. 2. I work the first row into the back bumps. 3. 4. I work one slip stitch into each back bump. 5. I have 60 stitches in total. I'll work 40 slip stitches with the multicolored yarn. So, I've worked 40 slip stitches with the colored yarn, and now I'll switch to the purple yarn. Look at how it's done. The side currently facing me will be the wrong side. So I bring this yarn toward me and pick up the purple yarn. Its tail, here it is, I also keep it toward me on this side. Then I insert the hook into the next back bump in the row, pick up the purple working yarn, and work a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3. I work exactly the same way into the back bumps. There will be 20 purple stitches here. 4, 5, 6. Basically work until the end of the row. So I finished 20 purple stitches. Now, if you count these V chains, you'll see that you have 19 purple ones and 41 multicolored ones. You might ask, how can that be? We did 40 and 20.
Keep in mind that the stitch you are currently working is only the correct color while it's on the hook. The 20th purple stitch is on the hook, but back when you were still using the multicolored yarn, the previous color was still on the hook, so it formed that colored stitch. This is all correct. It's not an error.
Now, row 2, a turning chain, and the second and all subsequent rows will be worked in the back loops only. Insert the hook into the second stitch from the hook, into the back loop, and work 1, 2, 3, 4. Look, I'll work up to this point. I'll leave one purple stitch unworked because I'll have a purple stitch on my hook, and it will naturally sit on top of that stitch. Since there were 19 purple chain stitches in the previous row, even though we worked 20, there are only 19 of these V chains. In this row, I only work 18 slip stitches. And since one stitch is on the hook, it will become the 19th. And my counts will match the previous row. So I'm working to that point. Here is the 18th stitch. Next, I'll switch to the other yarn, and the stitch on the hook will sit on it, so your color transition line will be straight. Once again, I remember that this side, currently on the bottom, will be the wrong side, so I cross the yarns on the wrong side. Now I insert the hook into the back loop, pick up the next yarn, and work slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I work like this until the end of the row. In this row, there will be 18 purple stitches and 42 multicolored stitches. Finishing the second row. Here is the 41st stitch, and here is where the 42nd stitch goes. Another turning chain, turn, and the odd row begins again. Insert the hook into the second stitch from the hook, back loop only, and here I again work 40 slip stitches with the first color in the back loop only. I recommend counting your stitches at all times. Count as you go, and if you are a total beginner in this technique, recount them at the end after finishing the row. This will prevent mistakes. I've worked 40 slip stitches with the first color, and look, I still have a stitch of the same color ahead, but here I'll already be switching to the next color. This is all correct. I bring the working yarn toward me again, pick up the next color, insert the hook into the back loop only, and start working with the next color. There will be 20 purple stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I've worked 20 purple stitches. Next is an even row, the fourth row. Turning chain, turn, and again start with 18 purple stitches.
As always, in the second stitch from the hook, back loop only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I've worked 18, which means I need to switch yarn. I take the next yarn and continue working in the back loop only. There will be 42 multicolored stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I work like this until the end of the row.
I think you've got the main idea. Do you understand the principle of how Intarsia is worked in this stitch? Slip stitches worked in the back loop only? We are constantly switching yarns, making a slight shift in the stitch color count to eventually get a straight color transition line. And likewise, we always switch yarns on the same side, which will be our wrong side. Work this fabric depending on what you want to make. I'm making a phone case, so the fabric should be long enough to wrap around my phone. I finished the piece. How to know if it's enough? Take your phone and just try it on. This stitch pattern stretches beautifully, and if I sew it together now, my phone will fit perfectly in this case. Next, I've left long yarn tails for seaming. I'm leaving the purple yarn about 60 centimeters, and also the multicolored yarn about 1 meter 50 centimeters. This length will be enough for me to sew the case now. So look, next I'm going to seam it. I'm using the jewelry seam as always. I've shown it a million times, and in this video, I'll show it for the 1,001st time. Position the piece like this. The live loop is in the top right corner, and the foundation edge is at the bottom. The initial tail from the very first row is in the bottom left corner, so they are opposite each other. Now I'll sew with this yarn like this, then continue with the other yarn and sew like that. These two threads will meet at one point. The work will cycle and the circle will close. If yours looks different, it means you worked the wrong number of rows. You either need to unravel one row or crochet one more, because ideally the starting and ending yarns always meet at the same point. That's when the item becomes truly seamless. So first, the purple yarn. I thread it into the needle, close the live loop, tighten the loop, and fold the piece like this.
Next, I move to the first row. The first row is the one with the contrast foundation yarn. I look at how the contrast yarn wraps around the stitches of the first row. Here is the contrast yarn, and here it catches two threads of the first row. I insert my needle exactly the same way. Insert the needle and pull it through. The contrast yarn is my guide. It shows you exactly what you should pick up from the first row. Then I return the needle into the stitch I just created. This was the turning chain of the last row, like this, and I bring it out through the next stitch, like this. At this same step, I insert the needle right here. If we were crocheting this row, this would be the working loop on the hook. I hope this part is clear. I'll call these stitches along the last row edge stitches, and I'll call these the current working loops. See, I insert the needle again under the two threads that the contrast yarn wraps around. pull through, then into the current loop, and into the edge stitch where the working yarn is coming out. Pull through, and back into the next edge stitch and into the newly created current loop. There it is. Pull through. And again, catch the 2 threads that the contrast yarn wraps around. The contrast yarn is a hint yarn. It shows you what you should pick up from the first row. Again, into the loop, into the edge stitch, and back through the next edge stitch and into the loop. Pull through. And again, catch the 2 threads wrapped by the contrast yarn. Into the loop, into the edge stitch, into the edge stitch, and into the loop. Again, catch the 2 threads that the contrast yarn wraps around. Into the loop, edge stitch, and back into the edge stitch and into the loop. Again, catch the 2 threads that the contrast yarn wraps around. Into the loop, edge stitch, and back into the edge stitch and into the loop. Continue this way until you reach the point where the next color starts.
I've finished seaming the purple part. Look where I stop. The last purple stitch goes into the loop and the edge stitch. This is where the last purple stitch of the last row starts. And next, I need to start making this seam with the other color. This side, this one, and this one is the wrong side. The right side is currently inside, so we change the yarns on the wrong side. We cross them on the wrong side, not on the face, even though both sides look the same. Remember, we always change yarns on the same side, and this side will be the wrong side. So I've threaded the multicolored yarn into the needle and I continue working with it. Where to insert next? Right here, into the edge stitch, then into the loop. And I make a stitch. Then again, I pull the contrast yarn threads apart. There, you can see how it catches the stitches of the first row. Pull through, into the loop, and into the edge stitch. Into the edge stitch and into the loop. Pull through. Again, I pull the contrast threads apart. And look at how the contrast yarn wraps around the stitches of the first row, and then I just continue doing the same thing. Into the loop, into the edge stitch, into the edge stitch, into the loop. Again, I pull the contrast threads apart, and look at how the contrast yarn wraps around the stitches of the first row. And then I just continue doing the same thing. Into the loop, into the edge stitch, into the edge stitch, into the loop. And I work like this until the end of the seam. Right to this point. Here the yarns will meet at one point, and I'll show you how to make the final join. I'm approaching the end of the seam. Here, everything should line up, stitch to stitch,
because the number of starting stitches must be equal to the number of ending stitches. We didn't do any increases or decreases. If something doesn't line up for you, it most likely means a mistake was made somewhere. And here is the last stitch. Now the two tails have met. I'll just tie them in a knot. 1 and 2. And now I can remove the contrast yarn. I open the foundation row and pull. It comes out easily. If it doesn't, you probably accidentally caught a thread somewhere. But you can always just carefully cut it out. The contrast yarn is removed. Now I go back to the multicolored yarn. This was the yarn of the first color. I still need to sew this bottom edge. How do I do this? I'll be inserting the needle into these edge pips. I'll go to the end of the row and then return. I try to slide the needle into each pip. These are actually the turning points, the turning chains from each row. I insert the needle here, one by one. A reminder, I am working on the wrong side. Make sure all your yarn tails stay on the wrong side as well. Just keep track of which side is your wrong side so you can weave the ends there, because both sides look absolutely identical. Sew stitch by stitch. Last stitch. I pull the yarn so it hides in the row. I've pulled it, now I turn it, and now I return to the starting point. I insert the needle back through those same edge turning stitches. It will be more secure. Now I'm returning to the starting point, where I'll tie the yarns in a knot. By the way, you can use this tension to regulate the shape. You can make the edges a bit more rounded if you pull a little tighter. I often use this trick on mittens and socks. When I want the edge to be slightly more rounded, I pull it tighter, and the edge rounds itself out. It turns out very elegant. And now I tie these two yarns in a knot, 1 and 2. Then I hide the tails with a wrapping motion inside one of the rows. I do the same on the other side. You can bring the tails to one point here as well. Let's do it like this. Tie them in a knot. And hide them along the crocheted chain in the same way. The project is now finished. I'll turn it right side out and we can do a trial fitting. There, the phone sock is ready. I have another version to show you as well. For this one, I used a beautiful braid in the center. This is the Rhombus diamond pattern, and you can also find a tutorial for it on my channel. I'm often asked how to level the edge when using this specific pattern. Look at how I do it. I tuck all the yarn ends into the ribbing. This is exactly what makes the edge look even and straight. So these are the 2 phone cases I've made. Thank you in advance for your likes. I hope this video was useful for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Remember, you can use this slip stitch technique for many other items, mittens, socks, and so much more. Thank you for your attention. Bye-bye.